episode number 61 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. My guest today is Hanna. A student of yoga for over 30 years and a teacher for over 25 years, Lauren studied the ancient systems of yoga and Ayurveda with many of the greatest living masters. In 2001, she founded Sonic Yoga, a thriving yoga studio and teacher training center in New York City. She is also the founder of Sacred Fertility Yoga, which is a union of Lauren's academic, spiritual, and personal experiences. After having her first baby naturally at the age of 46, Lauren considers Sacred Fertility Yoga to be the teaching she's been preparing for her whole life to offer to women who desire to unlock their fertility. So welcome to the podcast, Lauren.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
I'd love to hear about your journey and how the journey led you to Sonic Yoga and Sacred Fertility Yoga.
Oh, well, it's been a long journey.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a student of yoga and kind of on a spiritual path for many years. I guess you'd say my whole lifetime. And eventually I wound up, I also had a great interest in art and fashion. So I went to college, I went to university, I worked in fashion and PR for many years. And there was a moment when I was in my mid to late 20s when my dad passed away, and I had to go in and take over the family business and help kind of close things up and seal things up for him. And during that time, I had, free time on my hand, which I usually didn't have. And there was an ad in one of the trade newspapers. He had an interior design company and looking for people to volunteer to tutor young children in a school who were having difficulty with reading. And so I volunteered because I always wanted to, just work and help and support. There was always been that sort of altruistic side to me. So I wound up becoming involved with this young girl who was having difficulty reading. She had so many emotional, traumatic experiences in her life. And it just became this sort of mentoring experience and relationship. And it just sort of cracked open my heart, and my life sort of started to feel very different. I started to see things differently. I started to really have more compassion for other people around me. I was noticing the street people on the street. I just wanted to do something with my life and dedicate myself to kind of making a difference. So when it came time for me to go back to work, I started to look for jobs back in PR and fashion, and I couldn't do it. My soul wasn't being called to it any longer. So I decided to go back to school, and I sort of took a left turn, and I went back to school for social work, and I got my master's in social work. And I studied social work, and I worked for about 10 years in with various organizations. A lot of the work I did was with children and in the inner city school system in Harlem in New York City. I worked with AIDS patients. I worked with homeless. And from there, during that time, as a way to really help to sustain my balance and to keep myself energized and healthy during doing that kind of work, which was very intensive and dealing with a lot of, intense emotions and intense situations, I started getting really, really back into my yoga practice, like very seriously. And at that time, I was working for this one company that it was a difficult job because the bureaucracy and the administration was not really being supportive to the staff. And I kind of got caught in the middle of the whole thing. And anyway, a dear friend of mine at the time had a personal training business, and he offered me to come and work with him. And so we had this concept to open a mind-body transformational training program, and he was going to do all the physical part, and I was going to do all the metaphysical stuff, the yoga and the meditation. And in the meantime, I had been studying with a teacher very intensely, and he had said to me, I think it's time for you to go out and to start teaching. So even though I had this social work degree and I had trained to be a psychoanalytic psychotherapist, and I was starting to see part-time clients for talk therapy, in addition to my social work job, I got really drawn into this yoga way of healing the world. And so I worked with this friend of mine, and we started this business, and we were very successful. And I really found myself being more and more drawn to healing people through movement and meditation and breath work. And the talk therapy for me was becoming more of a struggle. So I decided to close that part of my practice, and I started just, transforming things more into an energetic experience that included, there's still some, reflection and journaling and different group experiences that I did, but a lot of it moved into the actual tools of yoga and techniques for healing and transformation. And so I was doing that for a few years, and I met through a client, this gentleman, Jonathan Fields, who was opening a yoga studio in New York City. And he was looking for someone to teach for him. And I went to have a meeting with him, and we bonded immensely very quickly. And I walked out of that meeting his partner. And I became the co-owner of a yoga studio. And that was 19 years ago. We're just having our
Oh, wow.
19-year
Cool.
anniversary. Yeah, Sonic Yoga. We opened the eve. We signed the lease the eve of 2001 of 9/11, 9/11.
Mm. Oh,
Um,
wow.
so it was a really profound time, and people really needed healing. So it turned out to be a really good thing. And the studio's been just a beautiful, tranquil place, sort of a sanctuary in the heart of Hell's Kitchen. 2 years ago, we moved a little bit further north, so now we're near Columbus Circle, so we're kind of in North Midtown Manhattan, right in the thick of things.
Hmm.
And it's a beautiful community. We do teacher training. We certify people to be yoga teachers. We've trained over 1,000 teachers over the past 18 years. We teach about 50 classes a week. There's tons of workshops and immersions and artistic events and creativity and dance and all kinds of things that happen at Sonic that are really geared toward just helping people to heal and build community. So there's a lot of young people that come to the studio that are kind of lost or looking for healing or a way just to get on track, or a community to connect to feel a part of something. When they come to New York, it can be very overwhelming. The studio is has a very homey feeling to it. So Sonic has been just jamming for now almost 19 years.
Wow.
And
Great.
in the midst of all that, in my early 40s, was trying to get pregnant. And right around the time actually that I got pregnant with my daughter Jaya was when I actually bought the studio from my business partner, my original partner, Jonathan Fields. He went off to do some other things. He became an author and a life coach. And I bought the business from him when I was pregnant. But the years leading up to that were kind of crazy and wild, because I started to try to get pregnant at 40, and I had no idea that that was, you know, going to be like a difficult thing. It didn't even occur to me that I was old, or that I might have difficulty getting conceiving. I just thought, okay, I'm ready now. Let's do this. And when
Hmm.
it didn't happen, it was pretty devastating. So I went on kind of a wild goose chase trying to find my baby, and it was a very stressful time. If there's any women listening who are going through the same fertility challenges, it really can kind of blow your mind. I think that it's one of the hardest realities that any woman, any person will ever have to face, is that
Hmm.
when you want to have a child and you're told you can't. Um,
Yeah.
and there's so many things that we want in life, but usually, if we work hard and we apply ourselves, we can make almost anything happen. But fertility
Right.
is something that you really can't control, or you can control to a certain degree, but then there's this other, this universal piece to it that that plays a big part. So I kind of went on a wild goose chase. I immediately, connected with the medical um, world, the Western medical world, and went for help and support. I started to seek fertility treatments, and I kind of let all of my innate wisdom, my yoga experience, and the tools and techniques that I had developed and had been using for many years, I lost faith in them because I didn't understand why I wasn't getting pregnant. And so I turned to the
Mm-hmm.
Western medicine for answers, and I put
Right.
all of my trust and faith um, in that method of achieving my fertility. And after doing several different fertility treatments, I kept getting negative um, responses, so I didn't get pregnant, and then it was making me more and more crazy, right? So then I
Mm-hmm.
started seeking out, any kind of healer you can imagine, any energy healer, a psychics, shaman,
Mm-hmm.
all these different types of astrologers who's going to help me to figure out what's going on here. I just wanted some answers, and everyone that I saw kept saying to me, "You're going to get pregnant. You're going to have a baby girl." And
Mm.
I was
Oh
like,
my
okay.
God. I just got
So
the chills.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was told several times, and I was like, "You mean a baby girl from China? Like, am I going to adopt a baby?" They're like, "No, you're going to have a
Wow.
baby." I'm like, "Okay," because
Wow.
I
That's
really
amazing.
did want to experience that. I wanted to experience. Yeah, it was amazing. I did want to be pregnant, although we were considering adoption as well. But I really did want to have that experience of being pregnant. It's something I always wanted since I became able to get pregnant. I spent
Mm-hmm.
we always say you spend like most of your life, half of your life trying not to get pregnant, and then
Right.
and
Yeah.
then all of a
I
sudden you're
hear
like
that all the
trying to
time.
get pregnant. You're like, wow. So I got to the point where after hitting a bunch of walls, I actually went to the extreme of going to India to do a donor egg cycle because I couldn't afford to do a donor egg cycle in the States. And the doctors were telling me that I was too old. My eggs were, dried up. I wasn't going to be a good candidate for IVF, that it's time for me to move on to donor egg. And so I went to India, and I found a doctor in India, and I did a donor egg treatment there, which was an amazing experience, but I ended up not getting pregnant. And
Mm-hmm.
after that, I kind of just decided that I needed to shift. I kind of had like, it was like, it was like a crisis, and it became like this existential crisis. I was like, okay, now
Mm-hmm.
what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? Like, what is going on here? I became a crazy woman, a crazy person. I went to extremes that I didn't know I was capable of, and I was not happy. And I was, pretty much, devastated and depressed and just not functioning really well. I mean, obviously, I was still teaching and working and putting on a good face for everyone, but deep inside, my heart was broken. And so I came to the point where I reached the pinnacle, and I said, you know what? This is it. I'm just letting go. I'm letting it
Mm-hmm.
go. I can't anymore. And at that point, I decided I needed to go back to my practice, like really deep into my practice. So I took a short sabbatical, and I moved out into a little cottage out by the beach. And I spent a number of weeks just really purifying my body on an
Where was
Ayurvedic
this in New
cleanse.
York?
Yeah, this was in Montauk. I went to Montauk, where I live
Mm-hmm.
now. I wound up moving here eventually
I'm
to
from
this.
Long Island,
Oh, you are?
by the way. Yeah.
Oh, wow, cool. Yeah, so I moved to Montauk, and well, I went to Montauk. I didn't move. Well, actually, no, I did move. I left the city. I got a
Mm-hmm.
place. I didn't know I was going to move here full time, but I rented a little
Mm-hmm.
place, and I went back to my practice in a very deep way. I spent, weeks meditating, practicing, cleaning up my diet, working with my journaling, my gratitude practice, doing my visualizations, my meditations, my chanting, my mantras. And I started to come back to myself and back into
Mm-hmm.
my heart, and started to really connect with my intuition. I really had kind of, I think, given away the power of my own intuition to others, to mainly to the medical doctors, but also to the shaman and the healers and the seers and the psychics. And I
Mm-hmm.
realized that, all the answers, if I was going to have an answer to the question of, am I going to have a baby, or am I going to get pregnant? The answer was really within me, that no matter
Yeah.
what anybody had to say, that the path that I had to follow was something that was already inside of me, right? The
Wow.
journey,
Yeah, that's profound. Yeah.
and also realizing at that point then that intuition, I was being guided not only by myself, or one could say by the divine or by God, but that I was also being guided by the soul of my baby that was to come, right?
Mm. Oh my God, I got the chills
Yeah,
again.
yeah, it was deep. It was deep stuff. And
Wow.
I started to, in my meditations, feel the presence of my girl. And she
That's
she said
incredible.
to me in so many words, "I'm coming. Just
Oh my
be
God.
patient,"
Oh my
you
God.
know? And I want you, I knew what she was saying to me is, I want you to be healthy. I want you to be happy. I want you to be, experiencing and loving every moment. I want you to be present in your life, because I want to feel when I'm ready to come in that you're going to be ready to receive me. And I was like, she didn't want to come
Oh
in when I
my
was like that
God.
crazy person. I was not, I was like, and the women that are listening that are trying to get pregnant, that are having a hard time, you know what I mean? You start becoming like, your mind becomes this can be very dark place, or you're on the roller coaster
Mm.
constantly. You're hoping and you're praying, and then you get your period, and then you get disappointed, and then you go into the darkness, and I'm never going to get pregnant. And then you blame
Mm-hmm.
yourself, and you think about all the, shame for things that you did in the past that you shouldn't have done. And now I'm being cursed. And how come everybody's pregnant and I'm not pregnant? Then your friends are getting pregnant. You want to be happy, but you're jealous. And like, all of these things that are going on are very, very intense. And so when I finally got that intuitive message from myself, or from her, or from God, or from wherever it came from, I started to relax. And
Mm-hmm.
I realized that the only way I was going to get through this, whether or not the baby was coming or not, was for me to have my, to stay in the most balanced state that I could be in, because life is short and each moment is precious. And I didn't want to tell my daughter when she did come, I wanted to have a nice story to tell her about when she came in, when I received her as her mother. Like,
Mm.
so I just got back on track. I started eating really well and working out and doing my yoga and my meditation and spending time in nature. I cut down my schedule a little bit. I wasn't working so much. I wasn't like obsessively, keeping myself busy. And within 3 months, I was pregnant.
Wow. That's
Hmm.
incredible.
At 45,
Wow.
naturally.
Amazing. I mean, wow.
Hmm.
I'm just
Pregnant
blown
naturally
away.
at 45.
It's such an amazing story. And I got the chills like a million
Oh.
times as you were speaking about how you heard your daughter and felt her. And it's
Mm-hmm.
incredible what happens when you get into a deep state of meditation and allow yourself to
Yeah.
fully listen.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. Such an
Mm-hmm.
amazing story. So
Yeah.
inspiring.
Yeah. That's the story.
And then through
So
your experience, you founded Sacred
yeah.
Fertility Yoga.
Yeah. So then what happened was I started, I had Jaya, I had my daughter at 46, and I sort of became, this hero of sorts.
Mhm.
And, women, friends of friends and students of mine and colleagues and anyone or everyone that I knew that knew someone that was trying to get pregnant, that was having difficulty getting pregnant, they were sending them to me. Can I have my friend call you? Can this person talk to you? Can you share a story with this one? And at that time, I was in with my acupuncturist, and she's this very powerful, intuitive healer and acupuncturist. And she said to me that she's like, I'm feeling like um, you need to start writing. I
Mm.
see a book. I see a book. And I was like, oh, well, I've thought about writing about my fertility journey. Like, it's something I've thought about writing about the story, because so many people are like, oh my God, that's such an amazing story. You have to write a book. People say these things to
Mhm.
you when you have a story to tell like that. And so I was like, yeah, maybe I will write a book. That would be an interesting. I've always wanted to write a book, but never knew what I was going to write about.
Yeah.
So I decided I was going to write a book. And I started to write the book, which still is not finished. Of writing a book, as I don't know if you've written a book yet, but once you
No,
start to write a
no,
book, you're like, oh my God, writing a book is like really intense.
it is.
It's an intense thing.
It's
I
a
mean,
commitment.
yeah, it's a huge commitment. Almost have my my book proposal complete. So I have the full outline, and I have all the chapters and all the parts of every chapter, and I have two chapters written, but it's a lot, it's just a work in progress. But anyway, I was thinking about writing this book. So I just threw up on, and I started to teach a little bit of sacred fertility yoga in my teacher training. So we do a prenatal teacher training where we certify people to teachers to teach prenatal yoga
Mhm.
classes. So I just started to add this little piece in that I called Sacred Fertility Yoga, where I would, as part of the teacher training program, I would train the teachers to just be conscious that sometimes you might have a client that wants to get pregnant but can't get pregnant, or a client that might have a miscarriage. And these are some of the ways that you can be sensitive to them and help them to start to improve their fertility. So I added it in as part of the teacher training program. Then I go to Bali a little, maybe a few months later, or a year later, or 6 months later or something. And I was teaching at a yoga festival in Bali, and the people who put together the bios for the teachers at the festival, they make this little book, that you get when you go to the festival. It talks about all the teachers. For me, instead of saying Lauren Hanna Sonic Yoga, they put Lauren Hanna Sacred Fertility Yoga, and they
What?
somehow got on. I know, it was so
Oh
weird.
my
Somehow they got
God.
onto the page of my website that had the description, and it was like, that was like not, that's not my main thing. It was just this little side
That's
thing I was doing.
amazing.
So anyway, I'm in Bali. I'm teaching at this yoga festival, and I get a request. They tell me there's a press person that wants to interview you. So I go and I meet with this woman who is from France. Lilu Mace is her name, and she has a YouTube television station where she talks with all of these amazing healers all over the world. I mean, it's a phenomenal station. If you ever want to check her out,
Mhm.
it's all done video interviews. So it's like a YouTube television station. And she interviewed me, and she's like, I want to hear all about your sacred fertility yoga. So tell me your story. So I basically told her the story that I just told you.
Mhm.
And at the end of the interview, she's like, okay, so can you please tell the readers where they can find your book? And I'm like, oh, I haven't written the book yet. And she was like, what do you mean you haven't written the book? You have to write this book. When are you going to? And so
Really?
I went home from Bali, and I was all charged up. And I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I started to try to write the book. I realized it was going to take me a year or more to write the book, maybe 2 years. So I decided to create just a workbook, like a short workbook, which was like, it's about, I don't know, 50 pages or so. That was all the ideas that I had for the book.
Mhm.
And from there, I don't know how I got inspired to create an online program. So what I did is I took the workbook, and then I created an online training program. So at first it used to be live, where I would have live meetings with the people that signed up. And it was a series of, it used to be 6 steps to sacred fertility, and now it's 7 steps to sacred fertility. Plus, there's a mindset piece, so it's actually 8 modules. So I created the program, and it's mainly done online because I live out here in, nowhere's land, out in Montauk. I'm
Mhm.
3 hours from New York City. But I do teach some live workshops at the studio, and I do have some private clients that I work with in person. But a lot of my work is done online.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So do you incorporate meditation in the practice?
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh yes,
figured, but
yeah,
I don't want to ask.
it's a full spectrum program.
Mhm.
So the first module, the intro to the program, which is the 7 steps to sacred fertility yoga, the intro is all about mindset.
Mhm.
So clearing your mind and getting your head in the right space to kind of move forward. And then the first step is called cleanse, and we go into diet, nutrition, supplements, the environment, cleaning toxins. Um, I said food, supplements, so all of that stuff. And then the second step is called energize. And in that step, we look at exercise
Mhm.
and sleep. Um, and we look at our cycle. and ways of trying helping us, timing wise and things like that. We learn about our fertility cycle, and then we learn yoga poses and yoga classes that we do at each different time of the cycle. So if you want to be in a very different practice, if you're in your ovulation than if
Mm-hmm.
you're in your pre or post ovulation, or if you're in your menstruation time. So there's a number of classes that they get downloadable, online yoga classes that I teach. And step 3, we go into the chakra system. It's called center, and we look at our emotions, our psycho emotions, because
Mm-hmm.
often there are psycho emotional blocks. I do think with me that there was some clearing that I needed to do. Before Jaya, my daughter, was going to come in, and that was some stuff for me around the heart chakra, some trauma I had as a child, as a little girl, and some things to do with my mother that I had to work through.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually was able to work through those in all those healing sessions that I did before I got pregnant. So we look at all the psycho emotions. And step 4, balance. We learn about self care and creating a balanced lifestyle. So we look at masculine versus feminine, because in the yoga tradition, we really do believe that uh, pregnancy comes, conception comes when we're in the receptive energy channels, so when we're
Yes,
in our feminine.
absolutely.
So there's a whole piece on that. And then we learn yogic breathing techniques. We learn pranayama techniques that are done at the various phases of the cycle to boost fertility as well, balance your hormones, improve the reproductive functioning. And then we go to step 5, which is connect, and that's where we start to learn meditation. So there are different techniques that I teach, and I also, through the teaching, I share the yoga philosophy that has to do with all of the steps. So, like, the roots of where all these practices come from. Although I do also blend in a lot of modern science and research, and also, of course, my own personal experience, my own stories, which can be, motivating and
Yeah.
inspiring, I think. And then step 6 is awaken. And step 6 is where we work with deepening our intuition and connecting to the soul of the baby. So we
Mm,
do
love that.
different rituals and exercises to prepare us both energetically and psychically to start to have more of a deeper relationship, so we can get those messages, right? And then the last step, surrender, step 7, is teaching the clients how to let go, because I think that's a really big part of it. And I think that was the critical moment for me, is when I decided to let go.
Yeah.
So how do we release? How do we clear the heaviness, the negative emotion, the the stagnation in our system? And so some of that is, we do actual physical exercises, and
Mm-hmm.
then some of it is meditations and journaling and things like that. So it's a sort of a full spectrum experience. And there's 8 webinars, and then each one has a different meditation that I guide you through. So there are 8 guided meditations, the workbook, and then they get the yoga classes, the yoga videos. And then there's options for adding on coaching, so group coaching or individual coaching. Some people like private coaching, some people do group, but you can also just do the program on your own, and it's in an online virtual school, and there's a help desk, and all your questions are answered. And so it's all set up. And it's called 7 Steps to Sacred Fertility Yoga. So that's mainly what I've been doing. And I've become so busy doing that I haven't had time to work on my book.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was just thinking about it the other day. I think that this year I'm going to refocus on my book.
Yeah, it'll come. It'll come in time. I think sometimes we ebb and
Yeah.
flow and then leave and then come back to it, and it has like
Hmm.
a almost like what's a pulsing, of creativity.
Yes.
Sometimes I feel like
Yes.
creativity pulses and it
Uh-huh.
comes and goes, and you got to let it go when it wants to let go, and then that's what
Yeah.
I find.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like trying to get pregnant.
It is. It is.
Sorry.
I think that the creative process, as a matter of fact, I'm actually thinking to incorporate that into the programs because Chinese medicine. I do fertility
Yes.
acupuncture, and I have
Oh.
a program in my office, and I think I'm going to start doing something where people would do something creative, because I really do feel I have a background in art myself.
Yes.
So I really do feel that the whole creativity, the second chakra, the sacrum,
Yes.
I mean, it's all connected. And,
Absolutely.
are wanting to allow that to come in. Now, I can compare this exactly to my state of mind when I'm creating art. If I
Yes.
force it, and if I hang on to it, so like I really want it to happen, it won't happen. I have
Yes.
to allow it to happen,
Yes.
and I have to back off and like take my ego out of the equation and then let it
Mhm.
come through me and be this open channel. And I really think there's such a correlation between creativity and conception. It's conception of the mind, conception of the heart, conception of the uterus.
Yes, I totally
So many,
agree.
yeah.
Absolutely. I had a client once. This is a great story. So we were working on the chakras in step three, and she was having, a lot of difficulty with the second chakra. And so we started going back and talking about creativity. And she's like, I'm really not creative. She's a doctor, medical doctor. She's not a creative bone in my body. I'm like, listen, we all are born with creative energy, like, it's part of us. And so we started to go back, and we started talking about, well, what about when you were little, what about when you were younger, what about, because that's when usually at some point in our early life, as we grow, there'll be a moment where somebody will tell you you're not a good artist, or you can't sing, or
Yeah.
stop singing, or stop dancing.
Right. You
And
never
right,
you never hear a child say, "Well, I don't draw. That's not my thing."
right.
You'll never hear a child ever
No,
say that.
no, they won't until somebody tells them they can't, or they
Right.
right. So what happened with her
Right.
is she used to sing. She told me, "Oh my God, I used to sing when I was little. I used
Oh,
to
wow.
sing all the time." And at some point, her parents, because there was a lot of pressure on her. She came from an immigrant family. There was a lot of pressure on her to be a doctor and to achieve. And so she had to stop singing because she was constantly studying and working to get into her grades, to the level they needed to be to get her into on this track to medical school scholarship,
Mhm.
right? Um,
Oh,
so I said, wow, okay, well, there's a place we can go. We can work with this. So
yeah.
she created a soundtrack of songs that she loved. And as part of her daily practice, she would sing. She used to,
Oh, that's
so
nice.
that
That's
was
so
part of
beautiful.
her
That's
healing
amazing.
journey. And she did have a baby boy. She got
Oh,
pregnant.
wow.
I don't know if
That's
it was only, I
incredible.
mean, she was an amazing client. She did everything. Everything that I asked her to do, her food and her yoga and she was so good at just really following everything. But I really
Yeah.
think it was that singing that like pushed her over the edge because it opened her. And she told me, I feel so happy now when I sing.
Oh, that's
And I'm
beautiful.
like,
I love
I
that.
know, and that gave me the chill. And I'm like, and then you're going to be able to sing to your baby. Like, how
Oh
beautiful
my
to give that
god.
gift,
I keep
you know?
getting chills
I
this
know, it's
this
so
interview.
beautiful, like, the
That's
whole thing.
amazing.
So, yes, to your point, I totally agree that creativity, whether it's art or whatever form of creativity, if it's dance or
Expression,
self-expression, it's
or
so
writing, or journaling. It could be
important.
journaling.
Journaling, moving
Yeah.
your body, just opening up that creative channel. So, right, fertility, creativity, it's all connected. Absolutely.
It's amazing. And interestingly enough, my listeners know, because I talk about this all the time. When you had mentioned that you had it in the heart area, the heart in Chinese medicine, there's a vessel that connects the heart to the uterus.
Mhm.
And it's the heart is so important. You
Mm.
treat the heart all the time, most of the
Yes.
time when you're treating fertility in Chinese medicine.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
pretty incredible.
Amazing.
So from your experience in teaching, like where have you seen, I know you can't generalize, but like where have you seen, is there one place that women tend to hold more attention?
Well, just like you said, the heart,
Mhm.
the heart,
The
the
heart.
heart's
So you
spot.
see that, you've seen that a lot.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
So
wow.
many, many, many. I mean, there's also the hips. hips and the
Right.
heart, I mean, we hold tension in a lot of places in our bodies, um,
Yeah.
but mainly, I think often the heart, when there's been some sort of a trauma or some sort of a rejection or vulnerability, there's often that
Mhm.
the heart space gets, wounded, and so there's tension around the heart to protect it.
Mhm.
The hips are often another place because they are just energetically, they have volume. There's the biggest muscles in our body and hold the most fat as women in our hips. Um,
Mhm.
so the hips are also another place, which in yoga, the hips are related to the second chakra, which
Right.
is related
So
to
that's the heart and
fertility.
the
Yep,
uterus. There
there
you
you
go.
go. So those are the spots. Those are
Wow.
the
It's pretty
primary,
incredible.
especially for women that are, specifically women who are on the fertility journey.
Yeah.
Other people, other women who aren't trying to get pregnant also hold it in those areas. But then you'll see some in the neck, a lot of neck tension, shoulder tension, things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the heart,
Carrying the weight of that
yeah,
world.
carrying the
The
weight of the
world that
world,
weight's
the
heavy.
heart, and yeah, and the pelvis and the hips. So opening those areas are really important, um, because we experience a lot of emotions when we're on the fertility journey, and we have to, survive and continue moving through our life and stay strong when in the face of all these, obstacles, and especially for women that are, going through fertility treatments, and that's a whole nother story that, um,
Yeah.
we're going through Western treatments, which can be very, traumatizing in itself. Um,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
yeah, I think that there's a lot of tension being held.
Yeah.
We have to go to work, we have to put up a face, we have to, stand for
Yeah.
the family when all the questions come. Oh, when you're having a baby, and people
Yeah.
who,
It's
unknowingly
really tough.
are, or then people are getting pregnant all around us, and we have to go to the baby showers, and so there's a lot of I find there's a lot of shame and a lot of secrecy,
Mhm.
and holding that shame, holding that self judgment, you know. As you know, as an acupuncturist, it gets into your energy field. It's in your literally. It's in your cells. It's in your energy. It's
Yeah.
in your chi or your prana. It's all affected by the emotions. So
Yeah.
the emotional ride, when you're trying to get pregnant is just, whew, it's intense.
It's very intense, but I've seen it's crazy, because I've spoken all the women that I've spoken to, and I speak to mostly women because a lot of my patients are women, and um, some of the people, the practitioners and the professionals on the podcast tend to be mostly women.
Mm.
I don't even know if I ever had a guy on. I may bring my husband on. He's an emergency medicine physician because it's
Wow.
interesting because he sees it from a different perspective, even though he doesn't do fertility.
Uh-huh.
There are some interesting things that he sees,
Yeah.
including the full moon and just things that he sees in the
Wow.
ER. So I think it would be an interesting person to come on. But but what I was gonna say was that everybody that I've met that has gone through this has such an amazing, powerful presence and a sense of enlightenment. Like they came through this craziness. Like it's almost like you come out a diamond from all the pressure. But
Absolutely.
I see people getting through it
Mhm.
have become, I mean, they're all such gems, every single one of them,
Yep.
like such gems, so interesting to talk to
Mhm.
and so powerful.
Mhm.
Like they found so much strength within themselves
Mhm.
that they could have never imagined they had.
Yes.
And they all say the same thing. I wouldn't have changed one thing
Yes.
at the end, once they got through it.
Yes.
It's pretty amazing.
I mean, from my perspective, from the yoga perspective or the shamanic, I am also a student of shamanic energy medicine. And,
Oh,
we
amazing.
see the soul connections, right? And, the
Mhm.
karmic patterns and the bonds that are made. And it's believed from these traditions that when the, the bond is made between the soul of the mother and the baby, that, you know, that once that bond is made, it's made, and there's nothing that can get in
Mm.
the way of that bond. But these
Yeah. Oh,
babies,
wow.
so these babies are choosing. it's believed. The babies
Hmm.
choose the mother. And usually when a mother comes to me, or, comes to the realization that she wants to get pregnant, I want to have a baby, when they feel that there's like this moment inside when their heart
Mm.
just
Yeah.
flips and they're like, I'm ready. When that
Yes.
happens, that's when you've been chosen, right? This is the belief.
Oh my God. I just got the
Yeah.
chills
Yes.
again.
And so what's happening, what I believe what's happening is, because then these women are saying, well, look, how come it's so hard for some women to get pregnant? It's so easy for others. Well, these babies that are choosing women like us, women that are challenged by their fertility, have extremely high standards. These are like
Hmm.
these light babies, like these very elevated souls. And they are not going to just come into any mother. Like they want their
Mm.
mothers to be conscious women. They want their mothers to be
Ooh.
strong. They want their mothers to know how to move through a trauma, to get to overcome an obstacle. They want their mothers to know how to find balance and to be steady and to have practices and tools and skills in order to keep their lives in harmony. And that's what these babies are asking for. And then I believe that's
Yeah.
why these women are given this challenge, because it's an opportunity for them all to grow and expand. And whether it's opening their hearts or expanding their mind or strengthening their body or cleaning up their diet or losing 100 pounds or whatever they have to do,
Such an amazing reframe.
right?
Yeah, it's an amazing, amazing
Hmm.
reframe. I mean, yeah, it's almost like life is calling upon you
Hmm.
to rebirth yourself, really. It's
Exactly.
incredible. And what you were describing about being light and energy and powerful and strong, these are the women that I've met. I mean, it describes
Yeah.
them, these gems.
Yep.
Amazing, amazing women. Wow.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm. It's unbelievable.
that is really incredible. And it's true. I mean, it's like we all as humans don't realize the potential that we have and how much power we have if we just, like you said, sit still, like get into your body, meditate, which really meditation's all about just listening.
Hmm.
Just listening to your body, listening to what it tells you.
Hmm.
And when you do that, it's incredible. But there's like an alchemical magic that occurs.
Yes. Yes.
Pretty
Yes,
amazing.
and it's the good thing is it's becoming more mainstream now. There's meditation apps, there's all kinds of ways to tap in. It's becoming so much more. My daughter, they do mindful minute at school. There's yoga classes
Yeah,
in the schools. Like it's I think that,
that's
yeah,
so
the
great.
next generation I think is going to have more of an advantage than our
Hmm.
generation did growing up, where we didn't really have so much access to all of these things. I think it is becoming more
Yeah,
mainstream now. Yoga certainly is. The yoga it
I love it.
continues to boom, um, and
Yeah, yoga's
I
amazing.
think that, yeah, um, it's not going to be as foreign and as difficult to achieve. Um, and more and more people are leading, guiding meditations, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. And if is there one thing that you could share that you think all women should start doing to help their fertility journey?
I think that loving themselves is the most important thing. I really do.
Yeah,
Like self love is, I know it sounds kind of cliche and kind of corny, but I really feel like in order to prepare ourselves to be mothers, to love our babies and take care of them in the way that we want to be able to, because the idea of it seems kind of like it's easy to think about, oh, I can be, the right mom and give everything that my baby needs. But if we don't know how to love ourselves, even if we give all the love to our babies that they need, they're going to see us not loving ourselves. And that is
right.
going to affect them. And
Yeah,
so,
you absolutely learn from example.
exactly. And they feel it. They feel everything. I
Yeah.
see my moms that, I work with, that they, their babies get everything that they could possibly want, but the moms are anxious and nervous. And I'm like, do you think your anxiety and your nervousness is not, your baby isn't feeling that? Your baby's feeling that. So I know you're too anxious to leave them alone for 30 minutes, but you have to go sit and meditate or hold them in your lap
Yeah.
and do it, like figure it out, take some time for yourself. So I think having a self-love, self-nurturing, having a daily routine of some sort where you take that time and, for some of us it's meditation, for some of us it's taking a bath, for some of us it's getting a massage, just some sort of a daily self-love practice where you nurture yourself and connect with the receptive part of yourself, the feminine part, where we're able to really be in stillness and allow ourselves to open so that we can receive this baby. I think what happens is, for many of us, and I find that a lot of my clients that are on the journey are women who tend to be very active, like very A type personalities, like myself. Um, and for me, a lot of the learning was about learning to be still, learning to be more feminine, learning to not do, learning to relax, learning to slow down, learning to take care of myself, learning to nurture myself. So I think that is a big piece of it. I mean, there's a lot of things in my program. Obviously, I talk about 8 different topics, that each topic has like many things to do. So there's lots that we can do, but I think we have to really start with taking good care of ourselves. So taking some time for yourself every day to either sit in meditation, to do some journaling, to do a gratitude practice, to do some visualization, to read something that's inspirational, maybe do something creative as we were talking about, some sort of art, or write some poetry or dance, or anything that's going to make you feel nourished and loved. Get a massage, take a bath, just indulge yourself and do something that makes you feel important. And that is going to open you up, right? Because the whole idea of fertility is about being receptive. In the yoga tradition, we believe that conception takes place in the receptive channel in the Ida Nadi line. So when we are in the energy pattern of receptivity, we are in a calm, receptive state. So we feel like we're in balance, which helps to balance our hormones. It helps to improve our reproductive functioning. It brings us into the parasympathetic system. So our mind gets more quiet. It boosts our immune functioning, which boosts our overall reproductive functioning. So in any way that we can be more calm and more still and more happy and relaxed, that is going to help boost our fertility. And I think for a lot of us who are working really hard at everything in life, our jobs, getting pregnant, our marriages, our relationships, that taking time for ourselves and just receiving um, can be difficult. So we have to be really strict with ourselves and disciplined and be conscious of that as we move through our day. Am I working too hard? Am I being too controlling? Am I stressing myself out? Am I overdoing it? Should I put some limitations? How can I bring myself back into balance? And these are lots of practices that you can actually learn through the yoga tradition, right? Bring yourself into balance. So, yeah.
Awesome. I mean, that sounds amazing. This whole interview has been so inspiring. I got chills up and down my spine all over the whole time. So this was
I'm
really, really
glad.
amazing to have you on. And also just wanted to mention again, where can people find you? And I'm also going to be posting it on the episode notes.
Yeah, so they can find me at sacredfertilityyoga.com. So it's the word sacred, the word fertility, and the word yoga.com. And they can also find me on Facebook at Sacred Fertility Yoga. I also have a support group for women who are trying to get pregnant. It's called the Radiant Fertility Circle. So they can join that group. And that's a great group because I do a Facebook Live every week and I teach different yoga techniques, mudras and mantras and yoga poses and breathing techniques to help boost fertility. Also Instagram,
That's great.
Sacred Fertility Yoga, and Twitter and all of that. It's Sacred Fertility Yoga all the way. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was such a
Thank
pleasure
you.
talking to you and hearing your
Yes, thank you
inspiring,
so
very
much, Michelle. I
inspiring
really
story.
appreciate it. I'm so happy to be here. And to all the women out there who are trying, just don't give up. It just takes one egg. You just need that right egg. And if you can just relax and
Right?
enjoy your life every moment, awaken, get the more happy. I believe the more joy you have in your life, the easier it is to get pregnant. I mean, sometimes I'm like, just try to create happiness.
Oh,
What were the things that used to make you happy before you started trying to get pregnant, right? Like I often go to that place. What was life like before that, right? Before the added
yeah.
stress. I know it's not easy, but there's support out there for you. So reach out, get support, enjoy your life, and let your baby come on in. Namaste. Thank you. Good night.
Beautiful.
Bye.
Thank you so much. So that concludes today's episode. You can find all the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to leave a review. Reviews are everything to podcasters. You can find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com. And please be on the lookout for my online course and program. This course has emerged from everything that I've been using for the fertility program I now offer at my office. I wanted to consolidate all of my suggestions and coaching and put it into a form that anyone can purchase and use. It was important for me to encompass key fertility health factors as well as guide you in implementing changes in your routine that are shown to boost fertility while being realistic and user-friendly. I will be offering this course with and without coaching. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com, where you can find the subscription form. I thank you so much for listening in and hope you have a beautiful day